We're joined now by Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, Marwan Bishara. Let's talk a little bit more about this Jenin Hospital attack. It's a brazen attack. Is it a violation of international humanitarian law?
Look, I'm no legal scholar, but for me, this is a clear violation of any human decency, legality, morality, or anything that resembles anything, because these things, these legalities have been created so that this is not done to anyone, whether it's on the Israeli side or the Palestinian or the American or the Iranian or Lebanese or whatever side. At the end of the day, there's a certain sacredness to a hospital or to a school or to a mosque or to a church. But in this very particular case, the Palestinian activist, the militant, he's been there for a while. And his brother, who's the only brother, came to visit him. There was no, reportedly, preparation for another October 7 operation. These were two brothers. One of them was almost paralyzed. So the Israelis, basically, the way they've conducted this operation against this hospital, killing people as patients, not as militants in a battlefield, That certainly is no less than an act of terror, in fact, by the Israeli state.
Do you think there's a greater sense of impunity on the Israeli side since October 7th, since the war on Gaza?
There certainly has been. Clearly, as President Biden predicted, the Israelis are angry. They are vengeful and so on and so forth. But there is another aspect to that. They are losing, or at least they are incapable of achieving their objectives in the war. And hence they're making up for their impotence and their failure by taking it out on the civilian population. And it's this certain exhibitionism that we haven't seen before, in as much. Apparently there are also more reservists, meaning just a larger sector of the Israeli public is participating in this operation, and their behavior shows just how right-wing, how fascistic, how fanatical the Israeli society has become. All of that, in fact, Laura, it reminds me of this very genius, one of those Jewish geniuses, right? There's some of them. And this very particular Israeli Jewish genius by the name of Yeshayahu Leibowitz. He was a philosopher, he was an Orthodox Jew, conservative, but he was also a biochemist, a philosopher, a Talmud scholar, lived until he was 90 in Israel. And after the 1967 occupation, he predicted that Israeli soldiers will turn into what he called Judeo-Nazis. He said, and he encouraged Israeli young people not to join the Israeli military, because he said as long as Israel becomes an occupying power, eventually dominating another people will lead them to become fascist themselves. I'm reminded of him nowadays as I see this sadism, this exhibitionism, this egregious acts on the part of the Israeli military everywhere. And the fact that they boast about it, the fact they laugh about it. And you see these Israelis diffusing these videos, countless videos about their heroism against Palestinian children and women and civilians. That's just too ugly.
We get back more to the politics. We've got Ismail Haniyeh, the political head of Hamas, heading to Cairo, talking about movement on a proposal for a ceasefire. Why do you think we are seeing movement now, some 3 weeks after all the talks were dead in the water following the assassination of that top Hamas leader in Beirut?
I think there's a good number of reasons on all fronts, right? I think, of course, the Palestinians are fed up with being bombed, starved, and this and that and the other. And I think Hamas understands that. I think the Israelis have basically bombed everything that's bombable or not bombable in the Gaza Strip. I think whatever is left in Khan Yunis and Rafah, I mean, now there's concentration of more than 1.5 million people there, so I'm not sure how far they can go. I think the Americans are the ones who are really getting their clock reaching its end, because it's an election year. it's getting really out of hand in Yemen, in Jordan, in Syria, in Iraq, and in Lebanon and elsewhere. And Biden keeps saying each and every day, we don't want a regional war. And certainly, I would think he doesn't want, after he committed to end the forever wars, and certainly a war with Iran, as the Republicans now are pushing him in the United States. That's not going to be conducive, neither to America, nor to the Biden administration, nor to Biden himself. So there's a number of clocks ticking. And I think there is, will on the part of the Egyptians and certainly the Qataris to mediate something in the war and have this exchange of captives and prisoners. But when you hear Prime Minister Netanyahu saying, no, we're not going to release, we're not going to release, prisoners, thousands of prisoners, we're going to continue with the war and so on and so forth. You would ask, what is going on? Is he just talking to his base? Is he just preparing himself to a Blinken visit pressure on him? We don't know.
We don't, but we will find out soon enough. Marwan Bishara, thanks very much.